الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصل اللهم على سيدنا محمد وعلى بيته الطيبين الطاهرين
اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد.
Okay, we continue with Surah Al-Kahf. We reached verses 7 and 8 last week. So quick recap of those before we move on. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم إنا جعلنا ما على الأرض زينة لها لنبلوهم أيهم أحسن عملا وإنا لجاعلون ما عليها صعيدا جرزا. We have made whatever is on the earth as an adornment for it, to test them who is the best in actions, who amongst them is the best in actions, and we will make whatever is on it into scattered dust. Now we mentioned a bit about the different aspects of that adornment, how it means that this world, this dunya and everything that's in it is temporary, of course, and it's not that which we as human beings want and seek. However, Allah has made it adorned so that we would desire it, and He has done that in order to test us. And there are other aspects to that as well, but this was the main aspect that's been referred to here. Of course, this raises the question that we didn't have time to ask last week, which is why does Allah need to test us? If He knows everything, and that's the main theme of the surah, the absoluteness of God's knowledge and how nothing escapes His knowledge. So if He knows, He knows so and so is going to be good, so and so is going to be bad. Why is there a need to even test us? Why does He say so that we will test them? Or as we have in other verses, لِيَعْلَمَ اللَّهُ مَنْ يَنْصُرَهُ وَرَسُولَهُ بِالْغَيْبِ, so that Allah may know who will help His messenger. So what does it mean for Allah to know, for Allah to test? What do you think? Why is Allah saying this, even though He should know? He should know, for example, Abbas, okay, he's a bad person. He said it, that's it. Khalas. Ali is a good man. He's going to go to heaven. Why do we have to come here and go through this process if Allah already knows what we are like? What do you think? Too difficult a question. Or too late in the day to ask such philosophical questions. Or too early.
Yeah, you are.
Free will, to check free will, and like give a person who have option to choose, and that's my.
Yeah, okay, we have free will, but Allah knows how I'm going to use that free will. So why does He need to test me? He knows this
Because we
person is
shouldn't
going
make
to
an
choose good.
excuse next time.
What?
We shouldn't make an excuse next time. Like, okay, if someone say that if you would have given me a chance, I would be a better person, but you didn't do that.
Yeah, of course. So what, if I understand you, what you want to say is it is contrary to justice in a way, isn't it? Because you are punishing someone for something that they haven't yet done, or you're rewarding someone for something
Just
they
because,
haven't.
of course, we believe
yet
on
done.
God's knowledge, but just because someone say, okay, Allah, it's your knowledge, but still, if you have given me a chance, I might have proved that I could be worthy,
That's definitely one aspect. Yeah, justice is one aspect of it.
This is maybe
There's
not
other
very,
aspects too.
very good example, and just thinking like when someone make a movie and then they make character, they know the movie but they have to make some characters, some good and some bad, and then it's like sometimes just imagine, okay, maybe Allah just created this one.
To watch us play out the movie.
Yeah, just like different characters, and
No, I don't
just-
think we should say that God is trying to entertain himself by creating it.
No, this is just a stupid imagination.
Yeah.
What is just imagination?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, you already told about that.
Okay, go ahead.
Like it's for us to know. It is for us to know that like what we have did, like that we deserve the punishment or the heaven.
So are you saying what was already said or different for that?
Yeah, kind of the same. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's one aspect, definitely the justice. So we won't say, oh, you're unjust, you're punishing me for something I haven't done. That's definitely one aspect. Yeah. There's other aspects too. One is, for example, that to be good and to be bad is not just an innate state. It is connected to actions, isn't it? So you become a good person when you do good things. You become a bad person when you do bad things, isn't it? It's like saying, it's like someone saying, you know, I'm a poet. And it's okay, well, like what poetry have you written? Oh, I've never written any poetry, but I'm a poet. You know, you have to write the poetry to become a poet, or say the poetry, produce the poetry, to be a poet. So in the same way, actions should be acquired. You know, things should be acquired in order for them to have a consequence. And actually, that brings us to the fact that we understand from this that heaven and hell are actually the results of our own actions, as Allah says in the Quran. It's not something that Allah dishes out in a way. It is the consequence of what we do. Especially hell is just a manifestation of the actions of an individual. And that's actually one of the main, that relates to the main theme of the surah, and that comes up again later in this surah. How, you know, hell is acquired by what we do. It's just an end result. We don't see that end result yet. Yeah? Like in the story of the people of the cave, or the man in the two gardens, or Khidr and Musa, and so on and so forth. You know, they're all pointing out that you're doing things, but you don't know the consequence of these things yet. You don't know what it's going to manifest itself as the word in Arabic is the ta'wil. What is the manifestation? What is the ta'wil of that thing? So when you do evil, it manifests itself as hell. So you know, if you haven't done evil, there is no hell for there to be. If you haven't done good, there is no heaven for there to be manifested, is it? And of course, in addition to that, another aspect is that by living these things, by experiencing these things, we become either good or evil. You know, being good is not just, okay, I believe in God. It's about doing those good actions. It's about overcoming those difficulties. And sometimes you might falter, sometimes you might make mistakes, but then you learn from those mistakes. And you become wiser, you become better as a human being, you know. It's about experiential learning. And that's again one of the topics of the surah. That we don't just, you know, it's not enough just to say, okay, I'm a good person and I believe in God. And that's not what God's looking for. He wants for us to have the actions as well. And that requires us to live those things. And that brings us to the final aspect, which is that, you know, you can't go to heaven without being good. And being good is not, as we said, just saying I'm good. You have to actually be tested. You have to be tempted. And then learn to overcome that, to understand why it's bad, and so on and so forth. And truly submit to God. And then you can go to heaven, isn't it? So that's the reason why Allah said, so that we would test them. Not because His knowledge is incomplete, but because we need that growth and we need that actualization of the actions, and we need to be tested in that faith before it has any value.
So you skip the. So if Allah knows already, He will do like this. So if already know the everything in the future is already coming.
Yeah, but you see, I need to go through that. Let's say, for example, I'm a good person that is going to go to heaven, yeah, and Allah knows that. But I'm not good the moment I'm born. I'm not a person who's deserving to go to heaven the moment I'm born, isn't it? I have to actually grow. I have to acquire faith. Then I have to be tested in that faith, and I have to prove my faith, and strengthen it through those actions, and make it blossom through those actions, and through those tests and trials. And then I will become a person that can go. So I'm not that person. If you put me there, I have to actually grow into that person. That's the point I was trying to make. Is it? I develop into that person who deserves that paradise. In other words, as we said, we acquire through our actions. This is why the actions are so important. أحسب الناس أن يتركوا يقولوا آمنا وهم لا يفتنون. Do people think that they will be left to say we believe and they will not be tested? It's not enough to just say we believe. We need to be tested in that. And the stories in the surah bring that up as well. Okay, we move on to the new verse. So that was a bit of a more thoughts on the last week's verses. Move on to verse 9. أم حسبت أن أصحاب الكهف والرقيم كانوا من آياتنا عجبا. Do you think that the companions of the cave and the Raqim were of our wondrous signs? Now, Raqim is a word that there's been different suggestions as to what it means. One suggestion is that it refers to a city. It's the name of a city, Raqim. And there's different theories about where that city is. Others say that it is the name of a book in which the story of the Ashabul Kahf, the people of the cave, was written. Others have said that it's also a book given to Prophet Jesus alayhi salam, but that's quite a far-fetched theory. Others have said that it was the name, Raqim was the name of the dog that was accompanying the people of the cave. Yeah, so they say that the dog's name was Raqim, and it's mentioned here. So the people of the cave and Raqim as in the dog that was accompanying them. Another strange opinion is that it refers to actually another group of people completely different. So that Ashabul Kahf is one group of people, the people of the cave is one group, and Ashabul Raqim is another group of people. And there is even some narrations that have been attributed with this regard, and it gives a story, and it has some similarities with the story of the people of the cave, etc. But again, that's a very strange opinion, because it would be very strange that Allah mentions them and then just by name, and then nothing is told to us about them. So, okay, another group, and now we're talking about Ashabul Kahf only. So no, the most correct theory is that Raqim refers to the writing, the tablet in which the names of the Ashabul Kahf were written, and we'll come back to that in a bit. But we could translate it then that Ashabul Kahfi wa Raqimi means the people of the cave and the tablet. The people of the cave and the tablet. And we'll mention what that means in a bit. So obviously we said that this surah had answers to questions that were directed to the Prophet, if you remember. Yeah, we said that they asked, according to the report, the Jews to tell them some difficult questions that they could ask the Prophet. Quraysh asked the Jews, so that they could disprove his prophethood, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And one of them was about a group of youth who went to a cave. And obviously, we mentioned back then that this is likely a mistake in the report, that because this is a Christian story, so it's unlikely that actually Jews were asked, but probably, Jews has been conflated with Ahlul Kitab in general, so they asked the Ahlul Kitab, and then the reporter said, they asked the Jews, forgetting that it was actually both Jews and Christians. So it's a Christian story, actually. Unlike, for example, the story of Dhul Qarnayn, which is which is mostly a Jewish story. Okay. Which is mostly a Jewish story, the story of Luqman. This is a Christian story. Actually, it's mentioned in many books. One of the earliest sources for that is Jacob of Sarur, who actually said to have lived slightly before Islam, around the end of the 6th century. He died. Now, we're not 100% sure if that attribution to him is correct. However, there is such an attribution. The story is famous, though. There's many versions of it in sort of medieval writings of Christians. And there's different accounts. But the famous account, which, as we said, is attributed to Jacob of Sarur, goes something along these lines. There was a group of youth who were the sons of nobility, and they lived in Roman times, and they became Christians in secret. And because obviously in that time Christians were persecuted and they were killed, and they became Christians, and they hid their faith, not revealing it to anyone except themselves. So there was just a small group of friends. Different numbers are given to how many friends, or in different names in the different accounts. But a small group of friends, half a dozen or so. And they kept their faith secret, only letting each other know about that. Until one day, the emperor of Rome, he gave an edict that everyone must come and give sacrifice to the idols on one of their celebrations. I don't remember what celebration, probably like the celebration of Jupiter or something like that. Everyone should come and give sacrifice to the idols without exception. In this way, sort of a test of loyalty to his subjects. And they say that this was generally this was during the time of Emperor Decius. Then these youth sort of ran away. They ran away, or they confronted the emperor and then ran away. Different accounts. And obviously, according to the Quranic account, they confronted or they revealed their faith and then they fled. It's unclear whether they actually did so to the emperor or was just some governor who was living at that time in the area. But according to the famous Christian accounts, it was actually the emperor, and actually they met the emperor, which, I mean, is possible. And so, after revealing their faith, they fled, refusing to give sacrifice to the idols. They fled to a cave, and in that cave, when they slept, according to the Christian accounts, they slept for 200 years, which the Quranic account gives it a 300. We'll come to those details then later. They slept for 200 years, and then when they woke up, they send one of their group, and this is generally agreed upon that he was called Iamelicos. And I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly, but he then went to the city. They gave him some money. He went to the city, he had a coin, old coin, and he went to buy food for them because they were hungry after sleeping for 2 centuries, although they didn't know that they had slept. And then according to the story, he comes to the city, and then he sees, the city, it's changed, it's different to what it is, and he doesn't recognize anyone there, and none of the shops that he knew was there anymore, and so on and so forth. And he was surprised that when he saw, people, crosses on their houses, and people talking about God openly, and he was like, what's happened, this short time that I was away, one night that I was away. I mean, he can't even guess, imagine that, centuries has passed. And he goes to then, he remembers, okay, what was I supposed to do? Buy the bread. He goes to a shop and he asks them for bread, and then he tries to pay with the coin that he has, and the shopkeeper then gets surprised when he sees that coin. It's a very ancient coin. He says that, you're a young boy, where have you gotten this? this coin from, that you have probably found a treasure somewhere. And he demanded that the boy take him to the treasure because he wanted the money for himself, according to this story. And then Malikos, he starts, no, what are you talking about? This is just normal coin and so on and so on. And the shopkeeper doesn't believe him, and he says that then the boy starts screaming, and there's commotion, and people come, and he tells them the case, and they say that we should take him to the governor or the ruler of the city, and they take him to him. And again, there's different accounts, but according to the famous one, then when he tells the story, and then he says that this is sort of, my name is so and so, I'm the son of so and so. When they say, who are you and stuff, says, my name is Melikos, I'm the son of this and this. And then in the meeting with the governor, there was a wise man, a priest, etc., who was there, and he says that I recognize this name, and wait a moment, and then he goes back to some vault, and he brings from there a tablet. Now, according to the story, when the youth had fled to the cave after they had revealed their faith, the emperor sent soldiers looking for them, and then they tracked them to the cave, and they found them in the cave, and they saw that they were inside the cave. They decided to seal the cave shut so that they would die inside the cave, and said this will be their grave, this will be their punishment, that they die inside that cave. And then they wrote on a tablet the names of the youth, who they were, as a warning that they were sealed in this cave for their crime, and no one should open it, and so on and so on. And they put it on the front of the cave. And then, according to some versions of that, then that tablet was taken later by some priests and taken to the vault of the city to keep as a historical record. According to some others, they actually went to the cave and they had this discussion. But anyways, we're sticking out to one version. I won't confuse you. So then he brings out this tablet and he says, yes, I find this guy's name. He's there. He's writing. He says, what are your friends' names? Tell them. And he says them and he says, yes, these are all the names. And he confirms that a miracle has happened here. And according to, again, the famous Christian story, this happened at the time of Theodosius, who, according to the story, there was a debate at that time raging about the bodily resurrection, whether people get resurrected with their bodies or just with their spirits. And then this was taken as evidence, that the news reached the emperor, and then he said, this is evidence that, in fact, he was arguing that the resurrection is bodily, and he took this as evidence that sort of he is correct, and the body, God can keep the body alive for so many years, so that means he can also resurrect someone, and this is proof of that, this miracle. So then they go to the cave anyways, the emperor comes as well, and they go to the cave with the Iamelikos, and then they see their companions there, and Iamelikos goes in first, and he tells them what has happened, and they get very astounded. And before they have a chance to do anything else, they all feel sleepy, and they go to sleep again, and they actually die. And now people come and they confirm that they've actually died, and then they decide to build a temple there. That's the story in brief. As we said, there's different versions. The Islamic accounts, so to speak, the Muslim accounts, are mostly borrowed from these different versions of these stories, and then adjusted to fit with the Quran, with the Quranic account. There's not really very many good narrations that give anything extra, so to speak, or have some sort of authoritative account with regard to this story. Actually, some of them, as we said, are more problematic, and they bring other details that don't make much sense. Now, historically speaking, so we know that during the time of Emperor Decius, there was an imperial edict that sort of made paganism the official religion, and that Christians made the persecution of Christians into an official sort of doctrine. So there was persecution of Christians before that, but it became, through imperial edict, it became an official policy of the Roman state to persecute the Christians. And it became even worse later during the time of Emperor Diocletian. So now there is some confusion whether in the Islamic accounts we have the name Daqiyus or Daqiyanus, does it refer to Decius or Diocletian? But most likely it is Decius, for the reason because Diocletian was a bit too late, because the Quran says 300 years. They should have actually been born during the time, they should have been resurrected or woken up from Diocletian 300 years if we go. They should have been already during the time of the Prophet, when they would have woken up in his youth before Islam, but still, anyway. So we would prefer that it's actually Decius. 300 years from there brings us to the time of Emperor Justinian. Now 200 years from there, from Decius, would bring us to Theodosius, and that's again historically correct, but obviously that's contrary to the Quranic account, which gives 300 years at the time of Decius. So that will bring us to the time of Emperor Justinian, or some other emperors as well, depending on how we sort of, what time during the reign of Decius, because they had quite a long reign. And there's other possibilities as well. It doesn't have to be Decius. Some other theories have also been suggested. Working back from Justinian 300 years. Again, that gives us different possibilities as well, because we don't know for sure what time they woke, what time they slept. But we know that during the time of Emperor Decius and after that there was official persecution. But it's not clear if this is referring to such a time. It could be just a local policy. The governor maybe had nothing to do with the emperor at all. And again, that's something what some have theorized as well, that the emperor was not involved in this. And it doesn't even mention in the Quran any sort of king or ruler or anything like that. It's all just from the narration. In any case, why is this important? Why am I mentioning whether it's this emperor or that emperor? Because there is two competing theories as to where the cave is of the people of the cave. Yeah, there's other theories as well, but there's two sort of better theories, more likely theories. One is that it's in Turkey, near the town of, and now I've forgotten the name of the town. One theory is that it's in Turkey, in southern Turkey, yeah, and another theory is that it's in Jordan. Now, the popular theory, according to the Christian writings, is that it's a town in Turkey, and this is the most sort of popular opinion. According to that, there is another theory more recent. After a cave was discovered in Jordan about 50 years ago, I think, or maybe 30 years ago, probably 50 years ago, where which fit with the description of the people of the cave, and it has some sort of archaeology that fits with that as well. So there is picture murals there of 7 people, or I don't remember how many people, and a dog, and so on and so forth. There's a picture of the emperor, and it said that this temple, this church was built by Emperor Justinian. So the theory of if we accept that it was Justinian, then we will probably lean more towards the theory that it's in Jordan. And this is a theory that some like Allama Tabatabai have preferred more. Others have preferred the theory that it's the one in Turkey, and I think Ayatollah Makari was more, in Tafseer Maimuna was more towards that opinion. Anyways, there's this division there of that opinion. Now, there are some differences in the Islamic accounts, in the Quranic accounts, with what the Christian tradition was, and we're going to mention that. But here, obviously, we can mention one thing today, because we're dealing with just the verse 9 today, which is that we understand through this story why they're called Ashabul Kahfi wal Raqim, and why it's caused confusion, right? Because Raqim means a writing, yeah, but why are they called the people of the cave and the writing of the inscription? Yeah. So once we understand the importance of the tablet that had their names written on it, because that was the evidence, isn't it, that they are who they say to be, because that tablet was in a guarded vault of the governor. No way some young boy could know those names. So it was the evidence that proved to everyone that these are actually a miracle, that it's not just a group of random kids who came from some other town and are playing a prank on us. No, it was evidence for people at the time. These are actually those youth who went to sleep, who fled because of their faith. And you have to remember now that the people confronting them when they're awoken are Christians themselves. So for them, it was a confirmation of that. Of the truth. Oh, and I forgot to mention another reason why Justinian is more attractive is because actually historical records show that Justinian had a debate about the bodily resurrection. He's actually written a book about that as well, about the fact that people are resurrected with their bodies. So that's another reason why Justinian is generally more attractive from a Muslim perspective. Right, or from a historical perspective. Now, where was I? Oh yeah, so we understand why they called the Ashabul Kahf wal Raqim, the people of the cave, and the inscription, because this was the famous part of their story. So right away, actually, Allah is showing, because as I said, this was a question that was asked. Tell us about a group of youth who went to a cave. By calling them the Ashabul Raqim, the people of the inscription, it's immediately showing that I know this story. The story is familiar in that sense, or is known to the person who is relating the Quran. Obviously, for those who doubted him, they would say he's making it up himself, but now he's showing that actually the story is something that I have awareness of. Now, interestingly, this verse is, to finish up, this verse is mentioned in many Sunni narrations. It is not in any reliable books of the Shias. I think it's come in Bihar al-Anwar, but it's just taken from the Sunni books. It is mentioned that the head of Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam was reciting this verse when it was being carried through the streets of Kufa on the head of the spear. That actually the lifeless head was seen by people, according to the reports that are mentioned by the Sunni scholars in different books. I don't remember now the details of names of the books, but it's in many books that they saw the head. When it was being carried, that it said, أَمْ حَسِبْتَ أَنَّ أَصْحَابَ الْكَهْفِ وَالرَّقِيمِ كَانُوا مِنْ آيَاتِنَا عَجَبًا. Did you think, actually, that the people of the cave and the inscription were of our very wondrous signs? In a way, of course, the verse, what it's saying is that, don't think it's such an amazing thing, because they, as we said last week, the Christians who asked this question, they wanted to bring it as proof that Christianity is correct, So, and of course, to the Quraysh who were asking about that, for them it was an impossibility that someone should remain for 3 centuries alive, because they didn't believe in resurrection. They thought it's impossible that someone gets resurrected. So Allah is replying in a way to them, saying that that don't think that this is such a stretch. Allah can do so much more. And when the head of Imam Hussein alayhi salam was reciting that as well, it's kind of saying that the karamat of the Ahlul Bayt are much more amazing than this sort of miracle given to these youth. And there's many other similarities between the story of the people of the cave and the story of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, and even Sayyidah Zainab, because one of the central themes and messages of the story of the people of the cave was the fact that they chose the life of the hereafter over the life of this world, even at the cost of everything. It was about having the bravery to speak truth to power. When the emperor was oppressing the Christians, these young Christians were brave enough to come and defy him. Yeah? And obviously, being from noble families, they weren't executed right away, so they had the chance to escape. So the emperor said, "We will decide. We will see what we will do with you. Just wait." According to the story. So now, of course, you can see the similarity with this and with what Imam Hussein alayhi salam did. Now he could have chosen to be quiet and He could have chosen to live a life of luxury, like these young people. They were from rich families. They had all the dunya at their disposal, and they could have busied themselves with. And they were young. They had their, so to speak, whole life ahead of them. Could have done what they wanted, enjoy the dunya. But their determination was such that they chose their faith, their akhirah, over the dunya. And that's what the next verse then says. إِنَّهُمْ فِتْيَةٌ آمَنُوا بِرَبِّهِمْ وَزِدْنَاهُمْ هُدًى. They were a group of youth who believed in their Lord, and He increased them in guidance. And of course, this increasing in guidance has many different meanings. Just very briefly, we'll talk about that next week. Very briefly, we'll mention one of them. One of them is that, related to what we were saying, that Allah will allow them to manifest the strength of their faith through their actions. He will put such trials in front of them that they will have a chance to show what they're actually made of, isn't it? And that's a blessing. That's a blessing given by Allah to the true believer, isn't it? And this is why Allah tests the strongest of believers with the most difficult of tests, because through those they have a chance to actually show the strength of their faith. Yeah? And this is why He said, why it's important that Allah tests us in this life. لِنَبْلُوَهُمْ أَيُّهُمْ أَحْسَنُ. That we test them. Who is the best in the action? Because through this they get to grow, isn't it? They get to show who they are. So Allah now, these youth, they could have been quiet. They could have continued their taqi. But they saw that no, now is the opportunity. Everyone is listening. If we say something now, it will send an earthquake. We might die. We won't see the results. But we will send an earthquake that will reverberate through time and will result in something. They had faith in that. It will result in something, even if I don't see that result. And this is actually one of the bounties that Allah gave to them, was that He let them live to see the result. And they got born, and they said, actually, no, yes. Now, Christianity was the official religion of the empire. That emperor which they thought, that Roman Empire which they thought, how could they overcome this huge machine? And what can we, 5, 6, young people do against that? They saw the consequence. That no, look, you did the right thing, isn't it? You were on the side of the truth, and now the truth has manifested itself. And that's, of course, one of the central messages of the Qiyam of Abu Abdullah alayhi salam as well, isn't it? That it acts as an inspiration. Someone does something, they might not see the result, but they will inspire others, who will then inspire others, and that will reverberate through time. And that's an important lesson for us as Shia Muslims, that we never think of our actions as small or inconsequential. Allah knows the final manifestation, the ta'weel of those actions, and how they will show themselves. We have to have faith to rely on God, that I do what's right, and Allah will then take care of the rest. And we pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will guide us and grant us the blessing of being the true followers of the Ahlul Bayt, following in their footsteps, following in their example, acting like they acted, living like they lived, dying like they died. Barakat as-salawat ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
We have a short time for Q&A. If there's no question, I think you have another program coming.
Yeah, we can do a little bit as that.
Okay.
One question
Yeah.
related to this. Like when this verse was revealed to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, then why didn't any of the companions of the Prophet ask about this event? Because if they or maybe they have asked, but shouldn't we have any brief detailed description about the event, which is because Prophet, when this verse was revealed, and Prophet should have maybe have told about this event, what was the description of this event.
Oh, certainly he must have told people. The thing is, you have to consider that not everyone is interested in learning about stuff like that. Okay, let's say now, for example, how many Shia Muslims are we in Finland? Now, if we have a lecture that discusses a topic like this, how many will show up to such a lecture? It's a very small minority. Maybe just a few people who are interested in actually learning more and going in depth into some details of issues. Anyways, that's not the point of uh, the the story of the people that get to tell us those details. Obviously, we're interested in those details as a historical thing because it gives us insight to the verses and so on and so forth, and we can draw other lessons from it. But it's not the main purpose to give these sort of, okay, was it this emperor, was it that emperor, did they live here or there, what were their names? Now these are mentioned in reports, as I said, there are reports, but they're so contradictory. One guest says one thing, another report says the other thing. They have contradictions, details are here and there. So we can't really rely so much on these sort of details. And the